Through our work, GeoLark Partners aims to equip businesses with tools and insights to support long-term, sustainable progress. Thank you for joining us on the GeoLark Partners podcast, where we delve into technology trends, industry insights, and approaches to digital transformation, where innovation and ingenuity meet investment. Here's your host, founder and CEO, Emery Geosits.
Hi, I'm Emery Geosits, CEO of GeoLark Partners. And welcome to the podcast where innovation and ingenuity meets investment. I'm really thrilled today to have two friends of mine join me from Switzerland who are so innovative in their moves around digital twin technology. And if I'm being honest, I didn't initially embrace digital twin because I have twins and the last thing I want is them replicated. However, let's dive into this amazing technology that everyone's talking about. So I'll have my friends Bruno and Patrick introduce themselves and the company SEKAI, which is instrumental in everything we're going forward and we'll be discussing in the podcast. Hi, Patrick. Hi, Bruno.
Hi, Emery.
So Patrick, why don't you go first and introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks a lot for giving us the opportunity to speak to you here today. My name is Patrick. I have a background in the financial sector and about 10 years ago made the move into technology. Just before starting SEKAI, I actually worked with Palantir in Switzerland on the business development side, where I understood the power of ontologies and how they all bring things together. And when Bruno is going to tell you now what SEKAI does differently, I think it comes to light that it's a very interesting approach.
That's great. That's great. Bruno, shed some light.
Yeah, Bruno, based out of Switzerland. I have a mechanical engineering, software development, and data science background. Prior founding SEKAI in 2019, I was working in several executive roles within Hitachi, including Chief Digital Officer for the region.
It's amazing how when you guys introduce yourselves, I immediately feel less smart. So, Bruno, tell us about how SEKAI was formed.
So we actually initially started by building virtual reality. So the first use case we were developing was actually a underwater training for divers for oil rigs, offshore oil rigs. And so one of the divers actually told us after sort of the training, he said, look, the worst thing which can happen if you do virtual reality training is that you have been trained on a wrong asset, right? So that you go underwater and actually find out that the virtual reality didn't match the real world, right? So real world consistency was actually the sort of the holy grail when it comes to digital twins. Sure. or further into the industrial metaverse. Then we actually came up with this idea how to build real world consistency at scale, so that you have 100,000s of assets or several dozens of processes in entire assembly lines. And that's why we then invented our technology, which is a combination of four main technologies into a super technology. This is artificial intelligence, spatial computing, data meshing, and granular ontologies, what Patrick mentioned. And combining those four technologies into one framework, into one platform, driven by what we call the SDK, which is a standard development kit for our customers, allows them to now actually build that sort of based on that super technology digital twins much faster, much more scalable, and foremost, they own the entire intellectual property. So we are a 100% transparent and open platform,
right,
where our customers can build.
Yeah. And how did you come up with the name?
SEKAI is Japanese. It's the term for the world or the planet. And one of our founders was actually, I think, for 2 years in Japan studying, and he came up with the brand SEKAI.
That's great.
Because we want to build this virtual world of the entire planet. That's our vision.
Well, listen, let's get started, right? Question around industries. So you mentioned the underwater location is this across all industries, or what do you see particular industries that potentially this works perfectly for, or other ones that need exploring?
So Bruno mentioned that we focus on machine-specific assets, so individual, correctly produced assets. So with a high real-world consistency. So obviously, then we focus on industries that have heavy assets and complex assets, with a certain preference on the oil and gas industry and the electricity production and distribution side, as well as complex manufacturing processes in the semiconductor space. These are the areas that we think we can contribute most value, because the assets really look different every single time a machine is produced.
Right. Now, we had talked about a while ago more of a ground, like, is this technology and what you guys are doing also in urban development and things like that? Do you see a space for your products and services around that?
The product is fundamentally industry agnostic. So we work on these small granular ontologies that Bruno has mentioned, and we produce these libraries into these ontologies into a library, meaning that we build ontologies and reuse them all the time. So obviously we have to build a certain industry specific know-how, because then we have these ontologies for that industry readily available and can provide the customer even faster access. But fundamentally, the platform is industry agnostic. So we have ideas around the finance industry, speaking to pharmaceutical companies, etc.
Got it. That makes sense. So, in the news today, you can't help, especially from the technology front, hear the amazing strides that NVIDIA has made around quantum computing, Omniverse, et cetera. Can you tell me a little bit on how leveraging NVIDIA and their Omniverse platform in digital twins? Can you describe to me how it plays in creating and maintaining the digital twin?
Yeah, so basically, SEKAI is part of the NVIDIA Inception program. So we are actually close collaborate with NVIDIA when it comes to their Omniverse platform in special. So they provide a very nice capability for real-time rendering and collaboration, right? So if you have like the 3D world, which is sort of always like the entry point for digital twins, where you have like this, we call that humanized data, right? So that people start understanding, oh, okay, this data is related to this sort of asset or to this sensor at this specific part in the specific location of the world. NVIDIA actually provides like a very nice and very sort of way in order to facilitate that 3D world in order to provide digital twins. And in addition, what we now are more and more recognizing is the capabilities when it comes to simulations, right? So digital twins are not only like counterparts of real world assets, they actually help before you have the asset, right? In terms of building it and simulating it in the virtual reality, and then avoid like building it in real world and sort of save resources and save material, so that you can iterate already in a virtual space. And the capability of NVIDIA's GPU with this tremendous high computing power as well helps in quite large complex simulation when it comes to wind animation for wind turbines, or like building simulations within hurricanes and stuff like that.
Right. Wow, that's so broad and interesting. So, if I stick with the idea of what's in the media and what you hear most of in our industry today, things like AI, machine learning, IoT, can you talk to me a little bit about how the digital twin aspects work in those three categories, and what you guys see when it comes to the AI, machine learning, and its involvement with IoT as well?
So first of all, I think for SEKAI, as we initially already mentioned, the AI is one of the four main pillars for the SEKAI platform. And since you can imagine ontologies are sort of this natural language, so what we do is we learn the data which we connect in our sort of data mesh. We learn them the human language, and now you obviously see that the natural language models, large language models, helps a lot by actually then give those data which are connected a broader context, right? This is then called a sort of a RAG, right? Retrieval augmented generation. Mm-hmm. So this is one side, like making the digital twins being more like interacting in language, in human language. But then obviously once you have meshed those data, you can ask as well different questions which are very much supported by machine learning, deep learning, either it's supervised or unsupervised. And those are then the traditional digital twin value cases for advanced analytics, such as predictive maintenance, remaining useful life, prognostics, mm-hmm. Failure detection, and all those, like based on the meshed data, you can have your algorithm and your machine learning capability.
Right. You have to be aware, Emery, that SEKAI is producing the underlying technology to connect data, not copy data and reproduce it in order to analyze it, but really connect it into a knowledge graph. Now that knowledge graph is fully traversable. So you can ask any question throughout the process. And very often a failure in a process is not limited to one deviation in the process parameters. Mm-hmm. A failure in the process originates potentially many steps before the step where the actual failure occurs. Okay. So you have to have the visibility over an entire production line in order to find that error. And that's what SEKAI provides, a uniform platform that you can run AI on top.
Wow, got it. So from just an integration standpoint, or what key technical challenges do you guys see that you've encountered so far in working in the digital twin space?
Yeah, I think one of the main challenges is actually that corporates think we don't have the data ready to receive such a technology. They usually come up and say, "Hey guys, this is brilliant. This is how things should run. That's perfect. That's what we need." But we are not ready. We don't have the data, right? And we are not ready to connect the data.
Right.
So that's sort of like, hey, you guys have a nice car, but we don't have the driver, right?
Right.
And usually I say then, we can drive the car for you, no worries. And the other thing is usually, let's start smart, right? So we are really like this learn fast company, agile. Let's start on just connecting two data sets. So we've connected for one customer just the construction 3D models, like for all their machineries, and the SAP system for bill of material. And that alone saved the company over 1.5 million a year, just by connecting those two data sets and being able to do those traversals Patrick mentioned, that you are not only in virtual reality, but as well on a 3D model on the desktop. You actually can click on it and you see all the bill of material data, you see the P&ID. Only 2 or 3 data sets has a tremendous value, because today, actually, if you have those silos within an organization, it's always friction, right? You have those breaks, system breaks, mm-hmm. called, like you have your SAP system, your CAD system, or your team center. Those are all siloed, and silos, obviously, then you take it out and put it in another silo. And what we do, we weave that spider web so that you can ask on top of that spider web several questions. And this already helps tremendously if you just start with what you have, right? And not what you think we must have to start with this sort of digital twinning or digital transformation in a broader scope.
So really, if there's going to be any technical difficulties, it's more on the preparedness and readiness of the customer or the project.
Yeah, exactly. There is not like a technology hurdle or something which hinder us to achieve the value. It's usually like within like the organization of the customer. For example, we work with a startup in the chip manufacturing, and they are super fast, right? They have everything already, they're super fast, and then there is no technology. It's just straightforward. You build it. But if you talk to customers, very large caps which we work, then they obviously have all those organizational units, departments, and stuff like that. And digital twins bring those departments together in order to drive this cross collaboration and cross department value, and even outside of the corporate boundaries. And this is sort of something which we face a lot, is like a little bit of pushback, because large corporates are not ready to receive such a disruptive technology.
And from their perspective, it's like, it can't be us. It must be you. We're perfect. We're not perfect. Now we have to remedy it before we actually introduce it. So I can see and understand that. You mentioned something earlier that I think is really interesting. You mentioned that saving a company X amount of dollars on something. Can you quantify that a little bit more? Like, what is the ROI of being able to introduce digital twin into your organization?
Yeah, it's a highly interesting question, Emery. Thank you. I think the ROI is something that we look at in the very early phases of a project, because if the customer wants that project to grow internally, it needs to deliver. So ROIs are a bit the tricky beast to model, because as with many new technologies, it's hard to get the full understanding of the effect you might have. I give you an example. Lufthansa did a virtual reality model of their new seats and pushed this around the entire globe. So now, one of the most interesting outcomes was actually that the cleaning personnel of airplanes could then train on these seats. So you do not know when you start what the outcome might be. That's why we try to identify use cases that will be used and model on this ROI. But very often we have surprising effects. Training is something that already offers a high ROI.
For sure. You told me that Lufthansa started when we were together, and it's amazing what you probably don't consider when you enter into a project, and then something like that just spins it completely differently. So to continue along the lines of what we're talking about, if you have a long-term vision, so what we talked about a little bit is sometimes the customer's expectations or preparedness could get in the way of this. Even when you consider that, what do you guys look at as the long-term effect that digital twin has, in particular on the environment, on sustainability, on those kind of topics that are so important to technology today?
The vision is sort of what we already have in our corporate brand, right? So
yeah,
we think that digital twins, as we are building them today, and as you see it, like building from other like companies or within companies, that's just the starting point, right? Here we are just like, okay, now we go on the journey, and digital twins become like the driving factor or the motor of that journey. It's called like the industrial metaverse nowadays, but I think the term doesn't matter. I think the idea or the vision is what matters. And here we see more and more companies leaving their corporate boundaries. Talked on internal challenges to get their data ready, but obviously outside the corporate world, that's as well then the next step of connecting not only like their internal products or their internal factories, but also connecting to supply chain, connect to other data, connect to logistic data, being able to report on SDGs fully automatically and not like by spreadsheets and stuff like that. So the broader vision is really becoming like a decentralized, more like ecosystem governed by digital twins, which actually collaborate together and work together, either human annotated or fully autonomous. But I think this is sort of what we see more and more as well from our customers. Just one example we recently built last winter is just a very simple a first step, right? Is if you face a lightning strike into your wind farm, that triggers a insurance claim towards the bank, which needs to send the money back. 3 companies, 1 use case. And this is so amazing if you start collaborating like beyond your corporate boundaries, that the effects are just not multiplying, it's like exponential, right? And the value of such ecosystem will be tremendous, help us to really solve the large problems, right? Like climate change, but as well inequity, inequality on the planet, and having those people having no barriers to contribute to an ecosystem. This is why we also embrace Web3 technologies in our platform.
Bruno, that answer is, opens so many thoughts, and it's so interesting to think of how literally a lightning strike could affect across so many places. And if you think about this kind of solution around that, and this, I'm preaching to the choir here, that's a game changer across so many boards, financially, environmentally, et cetera. That leads me to kind of my next question around reliability. If we're talking about things like, wind turbines and oil rigs and things that people rely upon sometimes to keep the lights on or to keep oil rigs running and things like that, talk to me a little bit about any challenges around reliability and how we can ensure the accuracy and reliability.
Very good question, Emery. Thank you, because we are working in high-value industries, so every hour of shutdown is mission critical to be avoided. So we work on assets that really keep the lights on. In a power plant or on an oil platform, the gas turbine needs to work, otherwise the lights are out. So we have a very high focus on reliability and ensure that by not introducing a platform layer with our digital twins, but we directly connect to the IIoT system or directly connect to the systems that the customer provides in order to minimize disruption. And the accuracy, I would like to treat that differently. That is super important, that we actually are accurate with what we do and really display the information and process the information in the exact way it is designed and it runs. Because if you analyze a machine and want to execute repairs supported by augmented reality on a machine, the spatial accuracy needs to be perfect. Sure. So you really need to see the part in the physical world at the same spot as in the digital world. Otherwise, you simply stop using the tool. So both areas are of a high focus.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And if you consider kind of what's next, there's so many industries, like you said earlier, so many possibilities around the digital twin solution. I guess my question is, what's next? How do you see this evolving? Bruno and I, we had a conversation not that long ago about the possibility around data center and replication of data center, et cetera. Can you guys talk to me about what you see the evolution of this in the next maybe 3 to 5 years or sooner?
Yeah, I think the main industry adopting currently maybe energy followed by manufacturing, right? Because they really have this sort of, first of all, energy is very boosted by the by greening, right? Like going away from fossil fuels, and they actually have this need of being early on digitization. But if we now see the other industry, we had as well now first discussion with med tech, right? Mm-hmm. So you have all those assets on for patient treatment. You can imagine training. Sure. For virtual reality training for your applications, whatever you need. Personalized medicine comes at scale, right? So those patients need to be treated well. So augmented reality, virtual reality starting out there as well. And then obviously digital twins at scale for retail goods, right? So it's super important that like mass produced goods, as well as potential digital replicas, and then obviously the entire knowledge sharing and collaboration. I think this is one topic where we see currently, it's called like Industry 5.0 in Europe. This is this human-centric way of Industry 4.0. In Japan, it was sort of 5 years back, Society 5.0, more like society-driven digital next wave of Industry 4.0. And I think that then helps to build really these decentralized capabilities of production of energy, but also mobility, and taking the entire community and the entire society much more into that ecosystem and into that space of the digital world, right? And these virtual worlds, right? So there are huge efforts and investments being made by the European Commission at the moment in order to start up and ramping up, having the society being able to contribute to the broader picture of sustainable development goals, right? So this is something which we are as well sort of want to drive forward with our platform.
Right. It certainly sounds like the possibilities are endless, and it's just incredibly interesting to see. One thing I would like to mention to our listeners is that SEKAI is seeking investment, and there are investment opportunities within this incredible technology and this incredible company, SEKAI. So if there is interest, please feel free to reach out to GeoLark Partners, and we're happy to facilitate that conversation. Okay, all that being said, this is amazing information, amazing organization. I'm so glad you guys joined me today. However, this is not something that a good cocktail party would like to discuss. So I want to change the topic a little bit and ask you guys personally, what's coming up that's fun? Any travel, any sports? I know, Bruno, you've golfed recently. Tell me a little bit personally about what's exciting for you guys in the near future.
In the near future, I think our joint trip to Abu Dhabi, to the ADIPEC, is certainly one of the highlights that's coming up. Looking forward to travel with you again, Bruno. And then, hey, Emery, it's Switzerland. The skiing season is coming up. So ski touring, mountaineering, that's coming up. So looking forward.
So I'll come to you.
Yes, please.
How about you, Bruno?
Yeah, I mean it's quite strange, but I really like the American way of doing things once a year. So I will do some pumpkins next weekend for Halloween with my kids, and I love to do that. Really, I like it every year. So that's my next private topic with my little kids. They are 9 and 11.
Perfect.
Some nice and scary pumpkin cutting next weekend.
Yeah, very, very good. Very exciting. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the GeoLark Partners podcast, where innovation and ingenuity meet investment. We certainly appreciate you joining us today. If you have any other information you'd like, www.geolarkpartners.com, and we will connect you with these great, fantastic gentlemen, their company, and their technology. That's all for now. Thank you so much.